death of Genghis Khan, the Kuriltai General Assembly of Mongol nobles was convoked in order to elect the new Great Khan, according to traditional custom. Jachi, the eldest of Genghis's heirs, had predeceased his father by 6 months, and the law of primogeniture was usually observed by the Mongols. Chagatai, the oldest surviving son, was passed over, however, and Ogedei was eventually appointed Great Khan. 1229 to 1241 his residence was Karakorum, on the Orhan River in central Mongolia, whence he directed his campaigns. Yeli Chukai continued to act as his chief advisor, and Chinkai, a Karaite Nestorian Christian, served as head of chancery. Ogedei himself is described in contemporary sources as a man of stern temper, energetic but given to pleasure, and a heavy drinker. His campaigns, like those of his father, were carried out simultaneously under generals acting independently in the field, but always directed by orders emanating from the Khan himself, and transmitted by a messenger system covering practically the whole of Asia. An East Asia war was launched against the remnant of the Jurchen Jin state in North China. The Jin Emperor found himself in a hopeless position because he was attacked from both sides. During the preceding century, the Jin had taken North China from the Song, but the Song subsequently allied themselves with the Mongols. In 1234 the Jin capital of Kaifeng fell through a combined attack by Mongols and Chinese. Azong, the last Jin emperor, committed suicide. 1236, new campaigns were launched against the West, apparently with the intention of subjugating Russia and even Eastern Europe, and adding them to the Ulis allotted to Bataclan. The empire of the Volga Bulgars was annihilated in 1237–38, a victory which opened the way to Russia proper. Central and northern Russia at this time consisted of city-states and independent princedoms, which fell one by one to the fierce attacks of the Mongol armies. The Mongol advance toward the Baltic Sea was brought to a standstill only by the Russian winter. The rich trading center of Novgorod was thus one of the few Russian towns not to be sacked. Resistance in Russia ceased after the fall of Kiev, December 1240. Further raids hit Poland, Galicia, and Volhynia. Advance parties even reached Breslau, Rockball, and Silesia. A joint force of German and Polish knights under Duke Henry II of Silesia suffered a crushing defeat near Legnica, April 9, 1241, but the Mongols preferred not to penetrate farther into central Germany. Instead, they turned south in order to join forces with their armies operating in Hungary. The attack on Hungary did not come as a surprise to King Belafor. The Kipchaks, a Turkish nomad people in southern Russia, had been subject to Mongol rule, but under their chieftain Khutan, a great part of them had fled from the Don and Dnieper steppes into Hungary, and placed themselves under the protection of the Hungarians. Batu claimed that the Kipchaks were his vassals, and asked the king of Hungary to send them back to Russia, announcing his intention to fight Hungary if his request was not granted. When he received no reply, he sent his southern army against Hungary. This army, led by Subutai, an able general, succeeded in defeating the Hungarians at Mohi in April 1241. King Belafor was forced to flee into Croatia. It does not seem that the Mongols ever intended to establish themselves permanently in Silesia and Moravia. In Hungary, however, they began to create a nucleus of Mongol administration and even struck coins, some of which have survived. The Hungarian plains may have appealed to them as possible pasturelands because of their similarity to the grasslands of southern Russia, where the Mongols installed themselves permanently, as the later Golden Horde. During the preceding years, Mongol armies had also been operating in Iran, Georgia, and Greater Armenia. The Khw Rezm Sultan, who had fled before Genghis Khan's attacks, became ruler of a kingdom in northwestern Iran and tried in vain to defend himself against the Mongols. He was murdered in 1231. Georgia had to recognize Mongol sovereignty in 1236. The advance of the Mongols in Europe and the Near East was, however, stopped by the death of the Great Khan Ogedei, December 11, 1241. The necessity to be present at the Kuriltai, which had to elect a successor, and the necessity to assert their claims, made some of the descendants of Genghis change their plans. Batu and his generals gave up whatever territory they had held in Eastern Europe. The year 1241 therefore marks a turning point of the greatest importance in European history, because in all probability Hungary at least would have become a Mongol dominion, but for the sudden death of Ogedei. Hulagu crosses the Danube River in January 1256, beginning the Mongol campaign against Islamic Persia. The region has been terrorized in recent years by the Assassins, but this extremist Ismaili sect meets its match in the Mongols. One by one Hulagu takes the Assassin fortresses, including the supposedly impregnable Alamet. At the end of 1257 Hulagu presses further to the west, into even richer lands. He and his horde move into Mesopotamia, the territory of the Caliph, and as such the ostensible center of the Islamic world. The Caliph in Baghdad, al-Musta'sim, risks the impossible. In January 1258 he sends an army against the approaching Mongols. The Muslim army is routed by Hulagu, who orders the Caliph to appear before him, and to destroy the walls of the city. When the Caliph declines, Hulagu besieges and sacks Baghdad. It is said that 800,000 of the inhabitants are killed, including the Caliph, who is executed by being kicked to death. In 1259, Hulagu and the Mongols take Aleppo and Damascus. The coastal plain and the route south to Egypt seem open to them. But in 1260 at Ain Jalad, near Nazareth, they meet the army of the Mamluk Sultan of Egypt. It is led into the field by Baybars, a Mamluk general. In one of the decisive battles of history, Baybars defeats the Mongols. It is the first setback suffered by the family of Genghis Khan in their remorseless half-century of expansion. This battle defines for the first time a limit to their power. It preserves Palestine and Syria for the Mamluk dynasty in Egypt. Mesopotamia and Persia remain within the Mongol Empire. Election of a new great Khan proved difficult because no agreement could be reached. In the meantime, Originating, Ogedei's widow, ruled by common consent of the Mongol nobles, 1242–1246. She wished the appointment of her son Gaik, but met with bitter opposition from Badu, who believed he had a better claim, as a descendant of Genghis's eldest son. She succeeded in securing Gaik's election in 1246. There is an eyewitness account of this election by Giovanni da Pian del Carpini, who happened to be in Karakorum at that time as papal envoy. Gaik himself was, as a person, very different from his rival Badu. He was strongly influenced by Nestorianism and favored Christian advisors, whereas Badu still adhered to traditional Mongol shamanism, and was entirely indifferent to any outside religion. The two rivals began to prepare for war against each other, but Gaik's premature death, 1248, ended both the family feud with Badu, and the chance of a Mongol court dominated by Christian influence. The empire was entrusted to Gaik's widow Ogil-Gamish, who ruled as regent for 3 years before the nobles could reach agreement. Badu himself still showed some eagerness to assume the supreme power of Great Khan, but gave up in the end because of old age, and persuaded the Mongol nobles to give their votes to Monkey Khan, son of Tolye. This meant that the overlordship of the empire passed away from the house of Ogedei, and went to the descendants of Genghis's youngest son. The Chagatai branch of the family felt slighted after Monkey's election, 1251, and bitter hostilities soon developed between the two families. The other end of Asia campaign with similar success took place against China. The leader was Kublai. His generals outflanked the Chinese defenses by moving toward Annam via the southwest of China, which was occupied by the independent Thai kingdom of Nanchao. Later on, Monkey himself took command of the China campaign, 1257. Again, as in 1241, fate intervened and brought Mongol operations to a temporary standstill. Monkey died in August 1259 in the field during the siege of a provincial town in Sichuan. There followed, as usual, an internal feud between various claimants to the title of Great Khan. Kublai secured his own election while still in the field, 1260, but his younger brother Rigbij proclaimed himself Khan in Karakorum. Hulagu was too far away and moreover too immersed in his Syrian campaign to exert any influence over the election. He seems, however, to have favored Kublai, and these two brothers at least remained friendly, although, or because, Kublai's dominion was so distant and his overlordship therefore more or less nominal. The year of Kublai's succession to the throne marks, in any case, a turning point in the history of the Mongol empires. In theory, Kublai was, as Grand Khan, the ruler of an empire stretching from China and Korea to Iran and southern Russia, but the diversity of the subjugated countries made itself more and more felt. Kublai came to regard himself as a Chinese emperor more than anything else, and similarly the other dominions developed on lines which were less and less Mongol. This tendency may be regarded as concomitant with the conversion of the various Khans to other religions, chiefly Islam and Buddhism. In Kublai's case, this conversion from Mongol to Chinese civilization was accentuated by the transfer of his capital to Beijing, 1260, which he began to rebuild in 1267. Mongolia was no longer the real center of the empire, not even of Kublai's dominions.